Hi, my name's Hyatt, and the book I'm presenting to you is Sidwick the Big-Hearted Moose. Up at Lake Winnebago, the far northern shore, lives a huge herd of moose, about 60 or more, and they all go around in a big happy bunch looking for nice tender moose moss to munch. Up at Lake Winnebago one day, they were lunching, just strolling along, enjoying their munching. For the moose moss that day was especially fine. When it happened that Thinwick, the last moose in line, saw a bingleberg sitting, the book called out, "Hey, it's such a long road, and it's such a hot day. Would you mind if I rode on your horns for a way?" "Of course not," smiled Thinwick, the big-hearted moose. "I'm happy my antlers can be of some use. There's room to spare, and I'm happy to share. Be my guest, and I hope they're comfortable there." So the binglebug picked out a nice easy seat, and the moose went on looking for moose moss to eat. Well, an hour later or so, the bug heard a squeak, and he heard a small voice of a tree spider speak. "I say," said the spider, "you've got a nice fine place. The moose seems quite friendly. He has such a nice face. If I got on too, do you think he would mind?" "Hop aboard," laughed the bug, "and I think you'll be fine. That moose won't object. He's the big-hearted kind." "I accept," said the spider with joy and delight, and he started a web on the horn to the right. While the spider was spinning, he heard a gay song, and a fresh little zinazoo bird came along. He stopped, and he stared, and he chirped, "Well, well, well, what a smart place to build! What a great place to dwell! I've been living on trees ever since I was born, but here's something new. Why not live on a horn? If there's room for two, then there's room for three. There's plenty of room," laughed the bug, "and it's free." Thidwick stopped walking. What was all the talking? The guest had caught Thidwick, the moose, unawares. "Hey," he called out, "what's going on upstairs?" "Just building a nest, sir," the zinazoo said, and began yanking hairs out of the poor Thidwick's head, and plucked out exactly 204. "Don't worry," he laughed. You can always grow more." Then he dozed off to sleep in his fine moose hair nest. "This bird," murmured Thidwick, "is sort of a pest, but I'm a good sport. I'll just let him rest. For a host, above all, must be nice to his guests. Besides, now it's getting quite late in the day, and surely tomorrow they will all go away." But alas, the next morning, the sun's early light brought to Thinwick's sad eyes a most welcoming sight. "Meet my wife," said the bird. "I was married last night. And perhaps, by the way, I should mention to you that our uncle is coming too to live with us too. You're a very fine host, so I knew you'd be willing." Then the uncle, a woodpecker, started drilling. All Thinwick's friends shouted, "Get rid of those pests!" I would, but I can't," sobered the poor moose. "They're guests." "Guests indeed," his friends answered, and all of them frowned. "If those are your guests, we don't want you around. You can't stay with us because you're just not of our sort." They all turned their backs and walked off with a snort. Now the big, friendless moose walked alone, and before long, with 4 guests, big woodpeckers, holes in his horn. "What holes?" whispered Herman, a squirrel who spied him. "What holes to hide nuts in?" "Mind if I tried 'em?" "They're yours," called the woodpecker. "Get right inside 'em. This big-hearted moose runs a public hotel. Bring your nuts, bring your wife, bring your child as well." So the whole squirrel family all jumped on a pell-mell. And the very next thing the poor animal knew, a bobcat and a turtle were living there too. Now, what was the big-hearted moose going to do? Well, what would you do if it happened to you? You couldn't say scat, 'cause that wouldn't be right. You cannot also shout scram, 'cause that isn't polite. A host has to put up with all those kinds of pests. For a host, above all, must be nice to his guests. So you tried hard to smile, and you tried to look sweet, and you'd go right to looking for moose moss to eat. But now it was winter, and that wasn't easy, for moose moss getting scarce when the weather gets freezy. The food was so gone on the cold northern shore of Lake Winnebago, there was just no more, and all the Thinwick's friends swam away in a bunch to the south of the lake where the moose wanted to munch. He watched the herd leaving, and then Thinwick knew he'd starve if he stayed. He had to go too. He stepped in the water, then, oh, what a fuss. Stop, screamed his guest. You can't do this to us. These horns are our home, and you've no right to take them. Our home to the far distance of the lake. Be fair, Thidwick begged, with a lump to his throat. We're fair, said the bug. We'll decide by this boat. All in favor of going say aye. All of those of staying say nigh. Aye, shouted Thidwick, but when he was done, we win, screamed the guests by a very large score, and a poor starving Thidwick climbed back on shore. Then do you know what those pests did? They asked in some more. They asked in a fox who jumped from the trees. They asked in some mice that asked in some fleas. They asked a big bear, and then, if you please, came a swarm of 362 bees. Poor Thidwick sank down with a groan to his knees, and then came something that made his heart freeze. Bullets were zinging right past Thidwick's face. Guns were banging all over the place. Get that moose! Get that moose! Thidwick heard a voice call. Fire again, and shoot straight, one and all. We must get his head for the Harvard club wall. Thidwick took to his heels with that load on his head. With 500 pounds on his horns, the moose fled. He could have run faster without all those pests, but a host above all must not be nice to his guests. Up canyon, off cliff, over a wild rocky mountain trail, with bullets banging and bouncing around him like hail. Up gully, through gulch, and down the slippery sluice. With his hard-hearted guests, they raced the soft-hearted moose. Then finally, they had him. Because of those pests, he had run out of luck. Because of those guests on his horns, he was stuck. He gasped. He felt faint. The whole world grew frizzy. Thing was finished completely. Or was he? Finished? Not Thidwick. Decidedly not. It's true he was in the most terrible spot, but now he remembered the thing he forgot. A wonderful something that happens each year. To the horns of all the moose and all the horns of deer. Today was the day Thidwick happened to know. The old horns came off so the new ones could grow. And he called to the pest on his horns, and he threw them. You wanted my horns? Now you're quite welcome to them. Keep them. They're yours. Ask for me. I shall take myself to the far distant side of the lake. And he swam Winnebago and found his old bunch, and arrived just in time for a wonderful munch at the south of the lake, where there's moose moss to munch. His old horns today are where you knew they would be. His guests are still on them and stuffed as they should be.